we live back then, the word kaizen was very prominent in our mind. Kaizen to me, in the Japanese word, means continuous improvement. But they drill it down to there's only two ways to live a life of continuous livement or live a personal and business life. That is, you do the same thing, you do it better than anybody else, or you do something so different, nobody else done it. We look around, you got to understand back then, like I was in part of the social committee, and we had like hundreds of people attending. We had Danielle Pink, anybody that was hot in the book, they were like, we got, if they were doing a book tour, so we wanted to figure out how can we leverage these chapters with all these people involved coming, what can we really make it stand out? And conversations started, well, how do we make coaching international? How do we recognize that? How do we bring, and that was our stake on the ground, and the talk evolved to, well, what if we start picking winners? What if we start looking for organization? What if we look at coach? That was the concept was Kaizen.
Yes.
And then the conversation, maybe this is one way to get to the international level. And that's how we got started. Toronto, we just did what we need to get going.
Yeah.
And then Calgary and Vancouver got wind of the idea and they just got going. And then, of course, they start asking us all sorts of questions. Yeah. And then we begin to put a binder to what are the nomination criteria, what are the evaluation criteria, and all that stuff. And then when we sort of got going the second or third year, we present to the ICF International, and the rest was history. They just loved it. So that's how it got going. That was always our stake on the ground, to be international. But we need to figure out what we were doing, or with the two Canadian chapters that was also interested.
I'd love to hear that, because that's where we're starting with the Team Coaching Prism Award as well.
Are you certified with Team Coaching International, TCI?
Michelle Chambers is, who's on the team.
So think about, they are now reaching government. They are now reaching organization in, at least when I was involved in certification maybe 8-10 years ago, they would be a great partner to how to bring that into, because again, there's a shift going on here. It's collaboration. You got to find a right collaboration partner to expedite what you need to get there. Team Coaching International, if they were still going on, what I think that would be a great way to leverage what they've done. Back then was underneath the true intention, how to make coaching an international recognized profession.
Okay.
Two, the way to get there is by recognizing organizations that have used coaches that have expedited their either productivity or performance or culture, whatever it was. So that way, using organization as a lead, and back then we realized that if organization back then only concentrate profit as the only gauge of success, it's not going to work. We knew that it has to be some sort of a shift as we see it. Toxicity in company where they're making record profit, they're paying the worker very minimally. And this is why we're going through this staff shortage now worldwide, mainly because it's not working. So retaining top talent, making sure that the talents are looked after, making sure the top performer have coaches, making organizations have coaching to get there faster. I mean, I'm languaging it now. I don't think that's what we were thinking of, but we did know that organization were going through a period of time where if they don't take care of the people and they only look at money as the only gauge of success, they're going to come to it. So that was sort of the gateway for us. How do we now leverage coaches into an organization in which we will be internationally recognized? Number one,
Yes.
because of the 2.5 years pandemic, we're exhausted.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out a way how to regroup, how to bring back that energy of aliveness.
Mm.
Because if you're on a Zoom call from 7:30 to 8:30 at night, there is no, I don't care what you do, there is no way you can give energy to anything or anybody else. Let me be very clear.
Mm,
You
mm,
got to figure out a way how to regroup, re-energize the group.
mm,
Even, I mean, I only go to the occasional ICF Toronto meeting mainly because, not because of the topic,
mm,
because I need the credit to certify my
mm,
MCC
mm,
credits. Like I said, this year, I'm at a point now where I don't get anything from there.
mm-hmm.
It's a very, I don't want to use the word morbid. It feels morbid-ish, very set in format, like there's no vibrantness. Like
Mm-hmm.
back then, I would, even as a social, leading the social committee, what I did was an hour and a half. You come and ask me whatever questions you want, how to build a business. I'll tell you how I did it and spark the group conversation. It was just a lot of what I call, because I love building business, it's called vibrant living things. Something's
Yes.
happening here. So the first thing is you got to re-energize a group.
Yep.
Without that, number two, the board's got to get the buy-in, which I already share. It's got to be a infinite game, a strategy. What's the big game we're playing here for Toronto? What's the stake? What's the purpose? What's the intention? Comes back
Yeah.
to the top of the call. What are we doing with this award? Where are we going? Because the last few years, all I'm seeing is a decline in participation and
Yes.
whatever. So those are the two fundamental things I think we need, and so on and so forth, to get that reconfig or regroup. What's the stake? Why are we involved?
Right.
And also, you got to ask the question, what's in it for us too? I mean,
Right.
the whole idea is, in serving other, you're serving yourself. What's the stake for the whole group? If
Yes.
the coaches that are coaching team don't see what's in it for them to
Yeah.
want to get involved, because it's a lot of process, what's
Yeah.
the point? So you might want to put in some sort of incentive. Maybe, if we have some money or donation, maybe the coach himself can win something.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you got to make it alive. You got to make it
Yes.
whatever.
The words that you mentioned, aliveness, vibrant, energy, engagement, these are all words that speak to an experience that we feel is missing right now. I noticed it too. You're noticing it. We don't know if it's happening in other chapters, but it's certainly happening in our chapter, in your experience. And I would concur with that in terms of my experience. So there's something about the awards or the team coaching award or generally the awards to engage and energize and incentivize. What are your
So
thoughts
let's
on that?
so let's get to the basic of what you just said. We're our coaches. If we are not giving people energy, if we are not able to sort through the weight of this pandemic,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Mm,
If you, meaning coaches, are struggling right now in the weight of this, and you are not able to,
yeah.
whatever, that in itself could be a challenge. That opens a whole new door to how to live what I call a life that is no regret. So there's lots. So one thing I've always said to myself is, what we do is we give energy away all the time. The problem with most coaches, which I got burned out 4.5 years back then, was give, 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 give. That's all we do.
Mm,
First thing we have to recognize is giving a part of you that is not you is not giving.
yes.
Let me explain. If you look at breathing in and breathing out,
Mm.
it's perfect 50-50%. If you only give breathing out and don't breathe in, you're going to die. So
Yeah.
most of us in this world of doing what we do, we are giver. We don't know how to honoring our worthiness to receive. We don't know how to honoring how to take care of ourselves. We just know how to give because we actually feel good when we give.
Yes.
So giving and receiving is perfectly balanced.
Yes.
Again, look at Mother Teresa's story.
Mm.
She gave her entire life.
Mm.
When they gave her the Nobel Prize, it come with either $1 million. What did she do? She gave it back to her charity. What happened at the end of her life? She questioned with her own priest, is there a God?
She questioned it. Mm-hmm.
The Catholic Church is trying to hide that because they're trying to canonize her in the shortest period of time. And how the hell do you canonize somebody when they're asking if there's a God? Why? Because all she knew was how to give. Even on her death, she chose a day that Lady Diana died on the same day. So everybody focused on Lady Diana, not on her. This is what happened when we give. We don't know how to balance. We don't know how to recharge.
What's the lesson to be learned there?
So here an antidote. The first antidote for me is if you look at a cup, okay, we give the content. And when the cup is empty, which is what we do, we get angry, we get resentful. So my analogy today is really very simple. I don't give the content of my cup. When my cup is quarter empty or half empty, I'm the most selfish son of a bitch you'll ever see. Because I don't want to give what's in the cup. That is very draining when you give what you don't have.
Right.
And it doesn't do the universe any good because you're giving energy that's not part of you. Second thing I've done is, once I understand the concept, I would write down 12 or 15 things when I'm low on energy back then. This is why my energy is never low now. Well, because back then, when I knew my energy is low, and you can't do it when your energy is low, getting that list.
Right.
I would say, Sammy, what would recharge you? Riding my Harley, driving my sports car that I love, my Aston Martin, taking bubble bath with candle lights. Massage once a week is my minimum requirement, if not more. Taking long walks, taking drives. You got to find and be truthful with yourself. When am I getting to that stage where I'm giving a part that is not me?
Yeah.
And what do I need to recharge? And that list, when it comes, I actually have a conversation, coaching myself. Sammy, what do you want to do? You want to go for a drive? Nah.
Love it.
Want
Love
to go
it.
see a movie? Yeah. Actually, oh yeah, Sammy, let's do that. Like I'm having a relationship with me. And that is the second thing that whatever. Third thing is you start cleaning up stuff in your life that allows you not to have a drag. So for example, most still going through the process in my life, I don't have anything in my condo that I don't love, not like.
Yes.
If I don't love you, you are not coming into my space. Period. Now, I might invite you to my cottage because that's where I do a lot of entertainment, but my soul space is sacred. I said goodbye to a friend of 27 years. Again, these are the things that takes energy. Like when you're making so many phone calls, how do you clean up? Maybe every Sunday you look at the list and go, what call do I not need to make?
Yeah.
As opposed to blindly living an unconscious life. That's really the antidote.
Yeah. You know what you're reminding us of today that's different from when the Prism Award was developed is global well-being is a huge kind of phenomenon and imperative, I would say. the global well-being. And I'm wondering, like, just as you're saying that, how do we factor that into the coaching awards, team coaching or otherwise? And team coaching, the relevance is that health, the global health of an organization. I speak about brand health. I come from a marketing perspective. Where's the health of the brand? And the brand is the people. And then the transition into team culture. So you're making me think about global well-being right now.
The connection that I see is you got to engage people. These are performers, and that's why they are winning these awards.
Yeah.
Right? Coaches always has done some sort of job to get them to these awards. A lot of these organizations are high performance culture. So now you've got these people in front of you. You can now talk about how is your work-life balance? Where is your mental health?
Yes.
How often do you turn this off?
Yes.
What agreement do you have with family? Like my daughter just made a statement that after 6 o'clock, nobody's on their tablets anymore.
Yes.
The 6-year-old and the 4-year-old was going wild because they're addicted.
Yes.
Even the founder of these Twitters and company, they don't let their kids use it because they know the damage it does to people if we don't know how to disengage.
Mm. Mm.
That would be the inroad. You get these people because the forward thinking, they're performing. Now we can bring in another. How do we heal? How do we find a balance? And how do we, and here's what I believe, work less, accomplish more.
Mm-hmm.
And you can never ever do that if you don't have space in between thoughts, which is part of meditation. You can never be creative solving challenges in a permanent long term without more space in your life. Why do you think Einstein takes a lot of breaks? You go to his house, I've been there in Florida. His wife will give you an apple pie and lemonade. You don't see Einstein. You hear a noise upstairs. He's taking a bubble bath.
Yeah.
He's fishing without a hook.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
He said it. Imagination is more important than knowledge. We are in a knowledge world where we think we can solve all the problems, but we are not really solving the permanent one because we don't have enough space.
Well, Sammy, I want to tell you, message received. And you're speaking to the converted. And this validation of everything you're saying is it's warming my heart, but also energizing my heart, if that makes sense to you.
So if you look at Prism, light shines in, and then there's a colorful collage of multicolor going out. What do you think we're doing with the Prism Award? We recognize these people who are achiever, who are good at what they do. Now we how to accentuate their story. How do we allow their stories to influence? Because this is how the ancient wisdom get passed on through storytelling. So I haven't read the criteria of choosing Prism for a long time. Part of the criteria is how do we use that influence to allow their story to share to other organizations? Because that's how we learn. That's how Chicken Soup for the Soul touched so many hearts because of story. That's why Jesus never tell rules because Jesus tell parables. It's the same thing. That's the Prism analogy.
It's beautiful.
Didn't come from me. I'm just regurgitating.
Well, beautifully expressed. Beautifully expressed.
All I know is I'm one of these people where I know I'm very social to begin with because being a restaurant owner and whatnot, you have to be social. All I know is back then the team that we had, there's just so much energy. There was just so much aliveness. There was just so much, and we were excited. I was new in coaching, and There just wasn't anything we didn't try. I mean, to get people like Danielle Pink, to get some of these speakers, to try some of these, whatever, it was just, it was a very unique experience. Very inspiring, very uplifting, there was just so many activities going on back then. Come back to energy,
Come
come
back
back
to
to
energy.
intention. And
As
if
we
we as coaches can't find it in ourselves,
mm,
that's where I think what we need to figure out where that part is next.
mm, inside out. Mm.
I've always remember what the Dr. DeMartini says. The further you go on the inside, the further your impact is on the outside. If we, everybody's feeling this weight. If we as coaches are the same, then
Mm.
are we not the coaches that help people go? I mean, I'm like, like I'm struggling with that.
What I appreciate about you, Sammy, is that you have energy, but you're also aware of your struggles. You know what you want, but you also know there's more work to be done, which is kind of like part of the human condition, feels like to me. Before we close, any final thoughts to share? Anything I haven't asked you yet that you'd like to share?
Thanks for the question. When again, my little involvement in this group, what I'm seeing is I now know that the only way through all this is we have to be the example.
Mm.
It's not just a saying, we need to be the change. How do we live this? How do we deal with what you're going through, the death? Because I'm the youngest baby boomer. They're dying in front of me. Some of them are dying behind me. Like some of these questions that give us weight, mortality, death, health, all that stuff. My bookkeeper of 23 years on Friday, the day her husband retired, went blind.
Oh, my goodness. Mm.
How do you have a conversation with that if you haven't dealt with your own mortality or death, if you haven't played with a part of that? This is why, as coaches, you have no choice but to deal with this inner game more than ever. And this pandemic, as I said, really taught every single human soul two things: how to deal with changes, how to deal with fear. And without those two things, which is what coaches are, we need to begin that conversation even more.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks for your patience. Bye bye.
Thank you for your time, Sammy.
You bet. Blessings. Bye bye.
Bye.
Times with your only parent, you might want to think about turning that on and say,
Yeah.
what are the top three stories you want the next generation to never forget?
Mm.
You have children?
Yeah.
What would you like to say to your great grandchildren wedding? Your
Mm.
advice to them.
Mm-hmm.
What three things in this life you've learned in this philosophy that you want every generation to know that's where you came from and they benefit from it? You see these questions in here.
Yes.
First, it allowed them to have closure because we come here buck naked, we leave buck naked, but having that, they feel a part of them is in you. That's why one of the greatest comment you can say to somebody on their deathbed is part of wherever you go, part of me will always be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we go buck naked and it's a
Mm-hmm.
very lonely journey until we find words how to deal with that. So by having their words recorded, they feel some sort of closure.
Mm. That's
For
very
us,
inspirational. Mm.
for us, When we are sad, when they're not here, we now have a piece of us that can play, even though we have grief, but we can play their words. We can look at their facial. Now the next few generation will be able to have that. You're able to play that in their wedding. Now you're talking about legacy. That's the
Mm.
power.